Kirk Franklin is trending on Twitter and several other places, and you probably already heard what's been released by now, his oldest son, Kerrion's recording of him. But if you haven't, I'm going to play it for you.
He just hung up the phone.
So, obviously, it's a personal family conversation, and it's not great that this has been released publicly. But I don't want to necessarily zoom in on trying to figure out who was in the wrong in that situation. Kirk has already since apologized for his part in it. But I more so want to discuss the implications of the responses to it. Now, obviously, Kirk Franklin is a gospel artist, a Christian, and a lot of his followers are Christians, supporters of gospel music, church stuff, and so on and so forth. And my concern is a lot of the Christian response, pastors and their responses to this situation. So before I get too deep into it, I want to be clear. I don't know the details of the situation. I don't know Kirk Franklin personally, but I actually do have a friend, 1 degree of separation, who is directly connected to Kirk personally. And I first wanted to point out that I think it's important that we consider what we post online about certain people, because you never know who knows who. I've had to check myself on that as my network has grown. The perspective sometimes is that, oh, that person's famous, so I can just say whatever. They'll never see it. It'll never get back to them. But the way the internet works now, and if you have a growing network of people that are connected to you, these people who you're talking about may see what you're saying. So don't just think that there's no way they'll ever see it. I'm just talking in a bubble or in a vacuum. That's not the case. In addition to that, I think we have to consider the impact of what we say. So a lot of the responses I've seen have actually been in support of Kirk. And I'm not saying you need to be anti-Kirk in this situation completely, but what I want to point out is the reality is most of us don't know, right? We don't really know what all is going down in that relationship. We don't fully know what's going on with Kerrion, Kirk's son, personally. And in all honesty, I never knew Kirk had this other son until this situation. Never heard of Kerrion before. I thought Kirk only had one son, the one that we see on Instagram a lot. But that's not the case. So, you know, I think consider the impact of your words on people, and just look at this. These are some of the responses I've seen on my social media from pastors or Christians. One said, Kirk didn't need to apologize to none of these people. Christians be having demons themselves and stay judging. Here's a comment from a pastor on the Kirk situation. Okay, so the discussion about Kirk Franklin, I just don't understand. He's a father, as I am. Trust me, it happens. Now the folks who grew up with time out, etc., may view it differently. But as for me and my house, ... never mind. And the implication there is he's saying, as for me and my house, basically, we'll cuss out our kids when we feel like it. Another comment, Kirk Franklin cussed his 33-year-old son up and down, left and right, and people are mad. Consider, Kirk cussed his son, not abandon him, not disown him, not stop communicating with him. People bash a black father for being absent and now for being present. A lot of young men wish they had this. If that 33-year-old got hurt, I bet the people bashing Kirk ain't paying medical bills, ain't gonna pay one car note, etc.
I'm Olivia Morgan, intake coordinator here at the WholeBro Mission. I'm here to pass on a little information about how you can join us in helping men in need seek licensed professional counselors nationwide. Number 1, ask. Ask if your employer participates in matching donations. Many employers will match your gift to a nonprofit. We are a 501c3, so all gifts are tax deductible. Number 2, pass. Pass this video as well as our website on to others so that they are aware of our services and our need of support. And number 3, give. If you're able to, please consider giving. The proceeds remove barriers for men seeing a culturally competent mental health professional, and they support our upcoming HBCU book tour. Thank you for your time.
And just to to lighten the mood a bit, here was Plies' comment. For those that don't know, a lot of people compare Plies and Kirk Franklin and say that they look alike. So Plies said, I got to put my dog on the album now. For real, he sounded just like me on that phone. That was not my dog on the phone. That was me. I take full responsibility for those actions. So Plies is saying it was him. But Kirk has admitted that it was him and he's apologized. So here are the things that I wanted to add to the conversation. One, we don't know what's going on with Kerrion personally, right? He's not the famous one. And who knows what he's seeing in terms of online. He may be on edge. He may be suicidal. He may be dealing with mental illness. He may not be able to handle all the pressure. And I'm pretty sure people are attacking him now because they love Kirk so much. So as the leader of an organization that's focused on the mental health of black men, I think we need to allow Kerrion to be human in this situation and recognize that our actions can affect him. You know, we don't know what's going on in that situation. So hypothetically, what if Kirk is abusing him and has been abusive? And this is Kerrion crying for help because he hasn't gotten help and he's just trying to reach out to the public. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I don't know. And you don't know. And that's what I'm saying. We don't know all the ins and outs. If Kerrion was to kill himself tonight because of all the pressure and people attacking him because he outed his father, who people see as a godly man, we'd be feeling stupid. A lot of the comments that pastors have on their pages right now, they would probably delete if Kerrion killed himself tonight. So I'm not saying Kirk is in the wrong, Kirk is in the right. I'm not saying Kerrion is in the right or the wrong. I'm saying in many situations like these, it's best to withhold comment depending on what you're going to say. And I'm saying withhold comment because, like the pastor I referenced, a lot of Christians and pastors are coming out, taking a hard line stance on this and saying basically Kirk is in the right. He's justified. And here are some things to consider before you respond that way. One, the impact of your words on Kerrion and in any other situation. I can compare it to R. Kelly. When R. Kelly got exposed more recently, a lot of people started attacking the women that exposed him. And I think there's this weird infatuation we have with artists and the music that we like to the point where we're going to defend complete strangers just because we love their music so much. When in reality, you don't know what that person is doing behind the scenes. You have no idea. So be careful before you step out there and take a hard stance on something with people you don't even really know. And something else I pointed out is a lot of times we unintentionally are telling on ourselves. How you respond to other people's issues can show what's going on inside of you. And you end up telling on yourself. And I think a lot of people have told on themselves and shown that they probably are verbally abusive to their kids or they were verbally abused. And I think the other thing we need to consider is not passing on trauma. Just because you grew up in a household where your grandmother or your mother or your father were cussing you out every time something went wrong or they were upset with you, that doesn't mean that you have to then pass that on. And for whatever reason, a lot of us take this mindset that because I had the scraps and the worst of the worst, you got to go through the crap I went to as well. And I don't think we should pass on crappy parenting to the next generation because then we just continue the cycle. So just because you had a crappy upbringing, your parent was an alcoholic, your parent was angry, your parent was abusive, you don't have to then pass that stuff on. Now, I do understand there are certain situations where a parent may lose their temper and say something off the wall. You know, that happens. But once again, it's different when we're going online to say, I stand by this man cussing his son out. It's great. It's beautiful. It's awesome. No. And practically speaking, if you look back, how much did you benefit from those times when your parents lost their temper and just cussed you out and tore you down verbally? There are better ways to parent that aren't necessarily even being soft. But just cussing people out doesn't get you anywhere. And I understand in this context, Kirk is saying that he lost his temper and he doesn't stand by it. But how crazy do we look? How crazy do pastors look standing by what Kirk said and Kirk don't even stand by it? And I think that's exposing that something's going on inside of some of these people. And they may have been cussed out growing up, but that doesn't mean that you have to pass that on or try to normalize it. In addition to that, just consider how it looks. Once again, I'm speaking to the Christian community now. How does it look? The initial post that I made regarding this situation was specifically to Christians, and how a lot of them have situations where their children that they raised in church end up becoming grown, and they leave their parents' house and they leave the church forever and they never come back. And you have a lot of Christian parents wondering why my kids left, or why my kids don't communicate anymore, or why they turned away from God. And in many ways, it's because of the hypocrisy they see. You know, the church and church members and pastors will stand up against so many other things, but now we're standing with Kirk Franklin for having a temper tantrum. So it's like, well, sins are sins depending on who's doing them. And it's almost like Kirk's smash hits and his bops are so good that he gets a pass. And you know how crazy that looks? And that's why a lot of your kids are turning away from the church and you, because of your hypocrisy. So just be conscious of what we're putting out there in the atmosphere. I think these are things we need to think about. The influence we're having, not normalizing dysfunction. Yes, you may have had bad parents, but don't be a bad parent. Don't do what they did. Consider the impact of your words. Lastly, just because Kerrion is grown does not mean words don't hurt. You can hurt an adult with words, especially words from a father. We don't know the details of their relationship. I'm not saying who's in the wrong. I'm saying Christians and leaders and whoever else, they're in the wrong for speaking on behalf of Kirk and defending his actions, even though he doesn't defend his own actions. And you don't have the details. Be careful. You might be telling on yourself.